The door to the penthouse clicked shut, locking with a mechanical finality that made Elena's blood run cold. She stood with her back against the dark wood, her chest heaving, her hands trembling in the silk folds of a dress that cost more than she had made in her entire life. The room was massive, a cavern of shadows and glass overlooking the glittering skyline of Seoul. It smelled of expensive leather, ozone, and something metallic, like blood cleaned with bleach. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself. "You're Isabella. You're his wife." She repeated the mantra, but it felt like a lie that would get her throat slit. Her twin sister Isabella had been the perfect doll, the one who married into the Kang crime family, the one who knew how to walk in heels without wobbling. Elena? Elena was a waitress who scraped gum off tables, but Isabella was dead. An overdose in a cheap motel room 3 days ago. And now, Elena was the only thing standing between her family and the wrath of Roman Kang. Suddenly, a rhythmic tapping sound echoed. Tap, tap, tap. A cane hitting the floor. The sound stopped her heart. Out of the shadows, he emerged. Roman Kang. He was taller than she expected, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that fit his broad shoulders like armor. His hair was jet black, swept back, revealing a face that was devastatingly handsome and utterly terrifying. But it was his eyes that drew her in. Hidden behind dark, round glasses, the eyes of a man the world believed was blind. "You're late, Isabella," he said, his voice deep and calm. Elena froze. The voice wasn't loud, but it commanded the air in the room. She peeled herself off the door, forcing her legs to move. The traffic was bad, Roman. I'm sorry." Roman stopped walking. He tilted his head slightly, like a wolf catching a scent on the wind. He didn't turn toward her voice. He turned toward her breathing. "Traffic," he murmured. He took a step closer. Tap. Step. Tap. Step. He stopped just inches from her. She could smell him, sandalwood and cold rain. He didn't reach out to touch her. He just stood there, his presence radiating a heat that made her skin prickle. "You've been gone for 3 days without a word. My security team said you vanished, and now you return, blaming traffic?" "I needed space," Elena said, her voice trembling. "You know how I get." It was the line Madame Coy had rehearsed with her. Isabella is dramatic. She disappears. Use that. Roman's hand moved, fast. Too fast for a blind man. His fingers wrapped around her chin, tilting her face up. His thumb brushed over her bottom lip. Elena stopped breathing. His touch was rough, calloused. The touch of a man who used violence as a currency. "Space," he whispered, leaning down to inhale the scent at her neck. "You smell different." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She hadn't used Isabella's perfume. She'd forgotten. "No Chanel No. 5? Roman asked quietly. "No French vanilla lotion? Today, you smell like rain, like the city streets." I ran out. I showered at the gym." "The gym," he chuckled darkly. "My wife, who considers lifting a teacup to be exercise, went to a gym?" He released her chin, but his hand trailed down her neck, resting dangerously over her pulse point. He could feel it. He could feel her fear galloping. "Your heart is beating very fast, Isabella. Are you afraid of me?" "No." "Liar." He stepped back, turning away from her with fluid grace. He walked toward the liquor cabinet, navigating the room perfectly without his cane tapping. "Pour me a drink, the usual." Elena stared at his back. The usual? She had no idea what the usual was. Whiskey? Scotch? Vodka? Sweat prickled her hairline. If she poured the wrong thing, the charade was over. She walked to the bar, her hands shaking as she hovered over the crystal decanters. "Think," she told herself. "Rich men drink whiskey. Or cognac. She reached for the amber liquid. Whiskey. She poured a generous amount into a glass. No ice. She turned and walked toward him, holding it out. Here. Place it on the table, he said without turning around. She set it down. The glass clinked against the marble. Roman turned, found the glass unerringly, and lifted it to his lips. He took a sip. Silence stretched, a heavy, suffocating silence. Then, he smashed the glass against the wall. I drink bourbon, Isabella, he whispered, his voice dropping to a lethal pitch. Only bourbon. I haven't touched scotch in 5 years, since the accident that took my sight. He walked toward her, crunching over the broken glass. He stopped when he was looming over her, blocking out the light. Who are you? And what have you done with my wife? Elena's mind raced. The broken glass lay between them like a boundary line she had just crossed. She could smell the alcohol fumes rising from the floor. I forgot, okay? I forgot, she shouted, her voice shaking but loud. Roman paused. He tilted his head. Isabella never shouted. Isabella whined. Isabella cried. But she never yelled. You think I remember what you drink? You think I remember anything about this miserable marriage? I've been gone for 3 days, Roman, because I wanted to leave you. I was distressed. I wasn't thinking about your damn bourbon. It was a gamble. A massive, reckless gamble. She channeled all the anger she felt toward her stepmother, toward the poverty she grew up in, toward the sister who died and left her this mess. Roman stood perfectly still. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Then, slowly, the corner of his mouth twitched. You wanted to leave me, he stated. Yes. He stepped closer, invading her space. But you came back. I had nowhere else to go. This was the truth, and Roman heard it. He heard the raw honesty in that single sentence. He reached out, his hand finding her waist, pulling her flush against his hard body. You have nowhere else to go, because you belong to me, he whispered against her ear. You signed the contract, Isabella. You don't get to leave until I say you can leave. Clean up this glass, and don't cut yourself. I don't like damaged goods. He turned and walked toward the bedroom, tapping his cane once, twice, before disappearing. Elena sagged against the bar, her legs giving out. She slid to the floor, burying her face in her hands. 12 hours earlier, in a cramped apartment in the immigrant district, Madame Coy sat on a velvet armchair that was too big for the room, looking at Elena with cold, reptilian eyes. Isabella is dead, Elena, the older woman said harshly. Elena stared at her. How? Foolishness, drugs. It doesn't matter how. What matters is the contract. We owe Roman Kang $2 million, or we owe him a wife. If he finds out Isabella is dead before the debt is paid, his men will come for us. They will burn this building down with us inside. So tell him she died. And lose the monthly stipend? Lose the protection? No, Madame Coy snapped. You are her twin. Identical in every way. I'm nothing like her. She was soft. She was polished. Look at my hands, Mama. Elena held up her hands, rough from years of labor. He is blind, you stupid girl, Madame Coy hissed. He cannot see your hands. He cannot see the cheap clothes. He only hears and touches. You will go there. You will be Isabella. You will keep him happy until I can transfer the funds to an offshore account. Then, you can disappear. He'll know, Elena pleaded. A husband knows his wife. Roman Kang doesn't have a wife. He has a hostage. He hates her. Just stay out of his way, keep your mouth shut, and don't let him touch you too much. Can you do that to save your life? Back in the present day, Elena was on her hands and knees, picking up shards of crystal from the penthouse floor. Her reflection in the glass was distorted. An African queen in a glass castle, playing the role of a dead princess. She finished cleaning and retreated to the guest bathroom. She locked the door and stripped off the silk dress. She turned on the shower, letting the steam fill the room. She looked at herself in the mirror, tracing the small scar on her collarbone, a jagged line from a childhood fall. "He's blind," she whispered to the foggy glass. "He won't see it. Just don't let him touch your collarbone." But Elena was wrong about one thing. Roman Kang was sitting in his study, staring at a bank of monitors. The monitors showed the living room, the hallway, and the reflection in the glass doors. Roman removed his dark glasses. His eyes were sharp, focused, and very much functional. He watched the screen. He zoomed in on Elena's hands as she picked up the glass. Rough hands, he calculated quietly. Calluses on the fingertips. Isabella never worked a day in her life. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "It's me," he said. "Run a background check on Isabella's family again. Specifically, look for siblings." He hung up and stood, walking to the window. "You're not Isabella, so who are you? And why did they send you to die in her place?" Roman walked to the bedroom door. He opened it quietly. Elena stepped out of the shower, wrapping a towel around her body. Suddenly, the door handle turned. Elena gasped, clutching the towel tight. "Roman?" He was standing in the doorway. He had his dark glasses back on. "I forgot to mention, we have a dinner tomorrow. The family elders are coming." "Tomorrow?" Elena stammered. I'm not ready." "You don't need to be ready. You just need to be beautiful and silent." He moved closer. He reached out, his hand finding her wet shoulder. The dark skin contrasted sharply with his pale hand. His hand slid down, over her collarbone. He stopped. His thumb traced the scar. "Roman?" she asked, her voice filled with fear. He felt the jagged skin. Isabella had flawless skin. This was proof. Absolute proof. Roman didn't pull away. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. "You've hurt yourself, my love," he murmured. I scratched myself, in the gym." "You must be more careful," he whispered, leaning in close. "I would hate for anything to happen to my wife." He turned and left, closing the door behind him. Elena slumped against the sink, shaking uncontrollably. She thought she had survived the test. She didn't know that the test had just begun. The next evening, the penthouse bedroom felt like a dressing room for an execution. On the bed lay a dress. Not the modest pastel things Isabella used to wear. This was red. Blood red. Silk, strapless, and dangerous. Roman sat in a chair in the corner, staring at a wall with that unnerving stillness. "Put it on," he commanded. Elena held the dress up, her hands trembling slightly. "It's very tight, Roman. Isabella usually wears what she is told to wear," Roman cut her off, his voice sharp. "Tonight we are meeting the elders. They think I am weak because of my blindness. They think my house is in disorder. You will wear red to show them that we are not afraid to bleed." Elena stepped into the dress. It fit like a second skin, pushing up her chest and hugging her hips. She looked in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back, powerful, terrifying, like the wife of a crime lord. She reached behind her, struggling. "I can't." "The zipper is stuck." Roman stood up. Tap, tap. He navigated to her, standing directly behind her back. Elena froze as she felt his hands brush her bare skin. His fingers were cool. He found the zipper tab instantly, but he didn't pull it up yet. He leaned in, his mouth hovering over her ear. "You are tense," he whispered. A wife should not be tense when her husband touches her. "I'm just nervous about the dinner." "Don't be," he said, slowly pulling the zipper up with a jagged sound. "Just remember the rules. Speak only when spoken to. Eat only what I eat. And if they ask you about your time in Paris, lie convincingly." Elena's blood ran cold. Paris? Isabella had spent 3 years in Paris. Elena had never left the city. "Paris?" she asked, her voice faint. Roman rested his hands on her shoulders, looking at their reflection in the mirror, though she thought he couldn't see it. Yes, Elder Kim loves to discuss the Louvre. I'm sure you remember your favorite painting, don't you, my love? He was baiting her. He knew. He absolutely knew. Elena swallowed hard, forcing a smile onto her face. Of course, the Mona Lisa. Roman let out a small, mocking laugh. How cliché. Let's go. The wolves are waiting. The private dining room was opulent, with gold leaf on the ceiling and servers moving like ghosts. 5 elderly Korean men sat around the table, eyeing Roman with a mix of pity and predatory hunger. Elena sat next to Roman, her back straight, sweating in her red dress. Roman, Elder Kim said in a raspy voice, your wife looks healthy. We heard rumors she was unwell. Rumors are a poison, Elder Kim, Roman replied, sipping his wine. As you can see, Isabella is radiant. Elder Kim turned his gaze to Elena. His eyes were like beads of black glass. He switched languages smoothly, speaking in rapid, fluent French. Madame Kang, you look lovely tonight. But I must ask, do you still prefer the summers in Provence or the winters in Lyon? Silence. Elena stared at him. It was gibberish to her. She knew street slang. She knew English. She knew some Korean insults. She did not know French. The table went quiet. The elders exchanged glances. Roman sat perfectly still, a smirk playing on his lips. He was letting her drown. Say something, she screamed internally. Anything. Laugh. Elena let out a soft, airy laugh and picked up her wine glass. Oh, Elder Kim, she said in English, smiling sweetly. You know I promised Roman I would speak only his language tonight, to honor his heritage. It was a pivot, a desperate, clumsy pivot. Elder Kim frowned. Is that so? How obedient? Suddenly, a waiter passing behind Elena tripped. A tray of hot soup tipped, falling straight toward Roman's lap. It happened in a split second. Isabella would have screamed. Elena reacted. Her hand shot out, catching the waiter's wrist mid-air, jerking the tray away just inches from Roman's suit. The soup splashed onto the floor, missing them both. She twisted the waiter's arm, pinning him back with a strength that came from years of fighting off drunks at the diner. Watch your step, she growled, her voice dropping an octave into pure menace. The room went dead silent. The waiter, terrified, stammered an apology. Elena realized what she had done. She let go of the waiter's wrist. She looked at her hand. Then she looked at the elders. They looked horrified. Isabella was a delicate flower. Elena had just moved like a bodyguard. Roman began to clap, slowly, rhythmically. My wife is full of surprises tonight. They left the restaurant through the back exit to avoid the press. The alleyway was dark, slick with rain. The black SUV was waiting. Roman walked beside her, his cane tapping rhythmically against the wet pavement. But as they reached the car, the driver wasn't there. Roman, Elena whispered. Where is the driver? Roman stopped instantly. Get behind me. He didn't need eyes to know the air had changed. 2 men stepped out from behind a dumpster wearing ski masks and holding knives. They didn't want money. They wanted blood. The blind king dies tonight, one hissed. They rushed. Roman raised his cane, but he was still playing the part of the blind man. He swung it wide, missing the first attacker on purpose to maintain his cover. The attacker lunged for Roman's throat. No! Elena screamed. She didn't think. She took off her high heel, a stiletto with a steel spike. She lunged at the attacker on Roman's back. She jammed the heel down into the man's shoulder with all her strength. The man howled, dropping his knife. Elena kicked him in the stomach, sending him sprawling into the wet trash. The second attacker hesitated, shocked by the woman in the red dress fighting like a demon. That hesitation cost him. Roman moved, no longer pretending. He stepped forward, grabbed the second attacker's throat, and slammed him against the brick wall with bone-shattering force. Who sent you? he demanded, his voice cold and deadly. The attacker choked, passing out. Roman dropped him. He turned to Elena. She was standing there, chest heaving, holding her bloody shoe, rain plastering the red dress to her body. She looked wild, beautiful, and absolutely guilty. Isabella faints at the sight of blood, Roman said, walking toward her. You just stabbed a man with a Jimmy Choo. He boxed her in against the SUV. He took the shoe from her hand and dropped it. He grabbed her face, his wet thumbs wiping rain from her cheeks. Stop lying, he growled. Tell me your name, or I leave you here for the police. Elena sobbed, defeated. Elena. My name is Elena. Roman's eyes flashed behind his wet glasses. He tasted the name. Elena, he whispered. Finally. He didn't kill her. He didn't call the police. He opened the car door. Get in, Elena. We have a lot to discuss. The drive back to the penthouse was silent, but the air inside the car was electric. Roman sat in the back seat, his wet tuxedo jacket discarded. Elena sat next to him, shivering, the adrenaline fading into cold terror. She waited for him to yell, to call his lawyers, to pull a gun. Instead, he reached into a compartment, pulled out a thick blanket, and draped it over her shoulders. You're shivering, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. Are you going to kill me? She asked, pulling the blanket tight around herself. Roman laughed. It was a genuine dry sound. Kill you? You just saved my life, Elena. Why would I kill my best bodyguard? He took off his dark glasses, wiping the rain from them with a handkerchief. For the first time, she saw his eyes clearly in the passing streetlights. They were dark, sharp, and intensely focused on her. Isabella was a parasite, he said quietly. She spent my money, whined about the weather, and looked at me with disgust because she thought I was a cripple. But you looked at me with fear, then defiance. And tonight, you fought like a lioness. I'm a fraud, Roman, she whispered. My stepmother. She forced me. Isabella died 3 days ago. I know, he replied. He opened a bottle of water and handed it to her. I knew the moment you walked in. You have a scar on your collarbone. You smell like rain. And you don't know a damn thing about French art. Then why? Elena asked, tears stinging her eyes. Why let me stay? Because I wanted to see what you would do, he said, reaching out to brush her cheek, his hand warm against her cold skin. And because, for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't bored. The car slowed to a halt. The driver's partition slid down. Sir, the driver said urgently, we have a problem. There is another car at the penthouse. It's Madame Coy. Elena's blood froze. Her stepmother. She's here to collect the money, Elena realized. She thinks I've secured the transfer. Roman's eyes turned cold, the predator returning instantly. Good, let her come. I have some questions for the woman who sold her daughter like cattle. They walked into the penthouse. Madame Coy was sitting on the white leather sofa, sipping champagne. She looked up, smiling, expecting to see her obedient puppet. Instead, she saw a soaked, furious Elena and Roman Kang, who was walking without his cane. Roman, Madame Coy said, standing up uncertainly, I didn't expect you back so soon, and you are walking well. Sit down, Roman commanded. His voice boomed through the room. The command was so powerful that Madame Coy actually sat back down. Roman walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of bourbon, the real stuff, and handed one to Elena. He didn't offer one to Coy. You sold me a dead woman, Madame Coy, he stated calmly. That is fraud. In my world, fraud is punishable by death. I was trying to honor our agreement, she sputtered. Elena is her twin. It is the same blood. Elena stepped forward, her voice shaking but gaining strength. I am not a product, Mama, and neither was Isabella. You pushed her until she broke, and you tried to do the same to me. You ungrateful street rat! Coy sneered. I gave you a palace. I gave you a billionaire. All you had to do was play the part. Tell me, Coy, Roman interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. How did the assassins know we were leaving through the back exit of the restaurant tonight? The room went deadly silent. Madame Coy's eyes widened. She flicked her gaze to the door. Only 3 people knew that route. Roman continued. Me, my driver, and the mother-in-law who called my office earlier today asking for my itinerary. Elena turned to her stepmother, horrified. You set him up? She didn't just sell you to me, Elena, Roman said. She sold me to my rivals. She figured if I died, she could inherit through you, the grieving widow. Lies! You have no proof, Madame Coy screamed, standing up. Roman pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. I have the recording of your call to the Red Dragon Syndicate. He looked at the door. Security. Heavy doors opened, and men rushed in. Take her, Roman ordered. The police are waiting downstairs. Conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and extortion. Elena, help me. You owe me. I raised you, Madame Coy screamed as she was dragged out. Elena watched the woman who had tormented her for 20 years get dragged away. She didn't move. She didn't look away. She took a sip of the bourbon. It burned, but it felt like freedom. The sun was rising over Seoul. The storm had passed. Elena stood by the window, wearing one of Roman's white shirts. She was packed. Her small bag was by the door. Roman walked in. He was showered, dressed in a fresh suit, but no sunglasses. He looked tired but at peace. Going somewhere? He asked. The police have taken Coy. The deal is done, Elena said softly. You don't need a fake wife anymore. Roman walked over to the desk. You're right. I don't need a fake wife. He picked up a document and ripped it in half. That was the contract with Isabella. It's void. Elena felt a pang of sadness in her chest. She picked up her bag. Okay. Goodbye, Roman. Thank you for not killing me. I didn't say you could leave, he said sharply. He opened a drawer and pulled out a new document and a small velvet box. I need a partner, Elena. Someone who can stand the rain. Someone who fights back. Someone who knows who I am and doesn't flinch. He walked over to her, holding out the papers. This is a marriage license. It has your name on it. Elena. Not Isabella. And this, he opened the box. A massive diamond, dark and sharp, not like Isabella's traditional ring. This is for the woman who saved my life. Elena looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. You want to marry me? For real? I'm tired of acting, Elena. I want the real thing. He got down on one knee, something he would never have done for Isabella. So? Will you be the counterfeit wife no longer? Elena looked at the contract, then at the ring, then at the man who looked at her like she was the only source of light in his dark world. She dropped her bag. Yes, she whispered. He stood up and kissed her. It wasn't a stage kiss. It was possessive, deep, and full of promises. Outside, the city of Seoul woke up, unaware that the king of the underworld had finally found his queen. And that is where this story ends. A lie became truth. A counterfeit became a queen. And 2 broken people found something real in a world built on deception. If this story kept you till the end, like the video. It tells me you want more stories like this. Subscribe to the channel for the next tale, because the next one will be different, but just as intense. And share this story with someone who loves dark romance, crime drama, and powerful endings. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying. Until the next story, stay curious, stay dangerous, and I'll see you soon.